The morning sun stretched long shadows across the dusty border crossing between Burkina Faso and Ghana. Captain Ibrahim Traoré adjusted his beret as he exited the military convoy, his boots crunching on the red earth that spread endlessly in all directions. This wasn't meant to be a standard inspection. Recent intelligence had reported suspicious activity along this specific part of the frontier, and as one of Burkina Faso's rising military figures, Traoré had chosen to investigate it himself. The checkpoint was alive with its typical chaos. Vendors calling out their goods, families reconnecting across drawn borders, and guards checking a non-stop flow of papers. The air was thick with dust and the smell of diesel from waiting trucks. Traoré had seen this scene countless times before, but today something was off. Maybe it was the edge in the guards' voices, or how the vendors kept eyeing the horizon with unease. As he navigated through the crowd, observing quietly, a sound sliced through the background noise like a blade through fabric. It was the clear sound of a child crying. Not the brief cry of a tantrum, but deep, gut-wrenching sobs of real despair. The sound echoed off the checkpoint's concrete walls, seeming to come from nowhere and everywhere. Traoré's instincts went on alert. Years in service had taught him to follow signs others might ignore. He moved toward the sound, cutting through the crowd with ease. Most travelers seemed unaware of the sobbing, wrapped in their own thoughts and plans. But to Traoré, the crying was a call, pulling him forward. Behind a rusted shipping container, partly hidden, he found her. She couldn't have been older than 8. The metal container towered over her small frame. Her clothing was torn, her face streaked with tears and dust. In her arms, she clutched a small, worn cloth doll, the only thing she had left. Traoré approached slowly, his rigid posture softening. He had younger sisters himself, and seeing this child in pain touched something in him. "Hello, little one," he said softly in French, then repeated it in the local tongue. "What's your name?" She looked up, her eyes filled with more sorrow than a child should know. She wiped her nose and whispered, "Aminata." Her voice was faint, almost swept away by the wind. "Aminata," Traoré repeated, kneeling beside her. "That's a lovely name. I'm Ibrahim. Can you tell me why you're crying?" Then she broke. In broken sobs and scattered words, her story unfolded. She had been traveling with her grandmother from their northern Burkina Faso village to visit family in Ghana. It was a tradition, something they'd done many times. A way to preserve ties across borders drawn with little thought for real communities. But this trip had gone wrong. Armed men had stopped their bus just 20 kilometers from the border. They wore no uniforms, no badges, but their purpose was clear. They were hunting someone. In the chaos and panic, Aminata was separated from her grandmother. She ran with others and ended up at the checkpoint alone, without money, ID, or any idea how to return. "They took everything," she said, her voice stronger now. "My grandmother's bag, our food, even her heart medicine. I don't know if she's alive. I don't know what to do." A cold anger stirred in Traoré's chest. Not the heat of battle, but the sharp fury of a man used to seeing injustice. These borders had become feeding grounds for criminals. Smugglers, traffickers, terrorists. The line between law and crime had faded, and it was people like Aminata and her grandmother who paid the price. "Listen to me, Aminata," Traoré said, his voice calm but sure. "You're safe now. I'm going to help you find your grandmother, and I'll make sure those men never hurt anyone again. But first, I need you to tell me everything you remember about what happened. Can you do that?" The girl nodded, gripping her doll tighter. As she began to describe the events of the attack, Traoré's thoughts were already racing, absorbing her words, shaping them into a course of action. He had come here expecting smugglers or insurgents. Instead, he had stumbled upon something greater. A mission that would redefine what he believed about his role as both a soldier and a human being. The administrative office at the border post was a small concrete room with flickering fluorescent lights and the constant hum of an exhausted air conditioner. Traoré sat across from Chief Inspector Konate, a veteran whose long career had carved permanent lines of fatigue into his face. Between them, Aminata sat silently, her small hands wrapped around a cup of sweet tea one of the female officers had given her. "Captain, with all due respect," Konate was saying, "this kind of thing happens nearly every week. Gangs target travelers, especially those who look like they might be carrying anything of value. Her grandmother probably got scared and took shelter somewhere. She'll show up," Traoré leaned forward, his gaze locked on the inspector. "Show me the reports from the last month. Every case involving travelers on the road from Dori to here." Connate's jaw tightened. "Captain, I don't really see how. Just show me the reports, Inspector." The documents painted a grim pattern. 17 incidents in 6 weeks. Travelers intercepted, robbed, or worse, on the roads leading to this very crossing. Each case disturbingly similar. Groups of armed men, no political symbols, targeting specific individuals rather than looting indiscriminately. But the most alarming thing was what the files didn't say. Very few victims had been found. Those who had resurfaced were often too shaken to give clear statements. "This isn't random," Traoré said, spreading the reports on the desk. "Look at the timing, the routes, the tactics. These are coordinated attacks." As he studied the documents, Aminata's voice broke the silence. "The man who took my grandmother's bag knew her name." Both officers turned toward her. "What do you mean?" Traoré asked. When the bus stopped, one man came straight to our row. He said, "You're Fatima Urago, aren't you?" My grandmother said yes. Then he took her bag. He wasn't looking for money. He was looking for her. Traoré exchanged a look with Connate. "Did your grandmother ever mention any problems? Any disputes or enemies?" Aminata shook her head. "She was just my grandma. She sold vegetables at the market and took care of me and my baby brother. She never hurt anyone." Still, Traoré saw hesitation in her eyes. There was more. Something she hadn't yet shared. He knew the signs, not of lying, but of fear and confusion. "Aminata," he said softly, "I need you to think carefully. Did anyone visit your grandmother recently who made her uneasy? Did she get any letters or phone calls that upset her?" The girl went quiet, fingers stroking the worn cloth of her doll. Then, she slowly nodded. "A man came to our house 2 weeks ago. He was nicely dressed, not from our village. He and my grandma talked a long time. When he left, she cried. She said we might need to leave soon, that things weren't safe anymore." "Did you hear any of what they said?" "A little. They were talking about my father." Traoré felt pieces falling into place, though the whole picture still eluded him. "Tell me about your father." Aminata, her face darkened. "He died when I was very little. Grandma always said he was kind, but he got mixed up with bad people. That's why she always warned us not to talk about our family with strangers." The room fell still, punctuated only by the low hum of the air conditioner. Traoré rose and moved to the window, gazing across the dusty border. In the distance, heat shimmered above the asphalt, mirages dancing and dissolving like ghosts. The official channels had been compromised. Traoré had known it the moment he intercepted the encrypted message that never made it to headquarters. Too many ears were listening. Too many eyes followed his every move. The local authorities couldn't be trusted. Not after what happened to Captain Manza. The conspiracy had spread like wildfire, corrupting every institution it touched. He was alone. Well, not entirely. In the back seat of the borrowed civilian truck sat a girl whose world had just been destroyed. Aminata clutched a worn satchel and stared through the cracked window. Her wide eyes had not blinked in miles. Traoré had no official orders, no reinforcements. His only allies were his own conscience, and the unwavering trust of a little girl who had lost everything. He reached over and gently tapped her shoulder. "Your grandmother once told you that your father hid something, didn't she?" Aminata nodded slowly. "She said he left letters for me. For when I was older. She said they would help me understand why he had to go away." "Do you know where they are?" "In our house," she said, "hidden in a place only our family knows about." Traoré stood outside the vehicle, staring north. The house was in Dori, 3 hours away by road, maybe more. And that road snaked through contested territory. Convoys had gone missing along that route, patrols vanished. And no one dared ask why. But if Lieutenant Wado's report, the one they'd been chasing for months, was hidden there, it might be the key to saving Fatima and exposing the conspiracy that had already claimed too many lives. He looked back at Aminata. "I need you to take me to your house. Can you do that?" The girl's face brightened for the first time since he had found her. "You mean, we're going to get my grandmother?" "We're going to try." He knelt beside her, placing a firm hand on her shoulder. "But it's going to be dangerous. These people have hurt a lot of good people. They won't hesitate to hurt us too." "I'm not afraid," she said, though her voice trembled. "My grandmother needs me." At dawn, Traoré made preparations. He avoided official vehicles and weapons, anything that could alert the conspiracy to his intentions. Instead, he secured a civilian truck with local plates, a faded canvas canopy, and a box of spare parts tucked beneath the seats. Civilian clothes replaced his uniform. A well-worn cap shadowed his face. Inspector Kennedy, watching from a distance, raised an eyebrow. "You sure about this? I'm just escorting the girl back home." Humanitarian gesture. Traoré replied smoothly. He didn't tell anyone what he was really doing. Didn't mention the letters. Didn't mention the report. Didn't mention that this mission would either save an innocent woman and bring down a criminal empire, or get them both killed. As he helped Aminata into the truck, she looked at him with complete, unwavering trust. A kind of trust that pierced through armor and orders. Failure was not an option. The road to Dori was a ribbon of dust and danger. Traoré took back roads and goat trails, always skirting the main highways. Government checkpoints were no longer safe. Many had been compromised. Others were simply gone. Entire outposts had vanished, swallowed by silence. They passed through the ruins of abandoned farms, schools riddled with bullet holes, and villages left to rot in the wind. At times, they saw smoke rising in the distance, black plumes of warning. Aminata, to her credit, never once asked to stop. She rode with quiet resolve, pointing out landmarks as though she had done it 100 times before. "That hill used to have a water tank," she said at one point. "My uncle helped build it. It doesn't work anymore." Traoré nodded, his eyes never leaving the road. By late afternoon, the horizon shimmered with heat, and the dusty track ahead twisted through a wide valley. That's when Aminata pointed. "There, that's our home." A cluster of mud-brick houses huddled beneath a ridge. Smoke curled from a chimney. To the untrained eye, it might seem peaceful. But Traoré knew better. He pulled the truck behind a massive baobab tree and killed the engine. The silence was too complete. No goats bleated. No children shouted. No women sang from cooking fires. He lifted his binoculars. Armed men moved through the village, too disciplined to be bandits. They wore mismatched civilian clothes, but their body language betrayed training. Their rifles gleamed under the sun. Their boots moved in sync. This was a professional hit team. Traoré muttered. Aminata leaned forward, pointing. "That's my grandmother's house. The blue one with the white door." 6 guards were posted outside it. 2 more entered and exited, tossing furniture, pulling up floorboards. "They're looking for something," Traoré said. "They haven't found it?" Aminata added quietly. "If they had, they'd be gone. And so would your grandmother." "What do we do?" she asked. He studied the terrain. They had blocked the main paths and entry points, but the irrigation ditches and animal pens behind the houses were unguarded. He turned to her. "I need you to tell me exactly where the letters are hidden." "Every detail." She closed her eyes. "In the back room of our house, under my grandmother's bed. There's a loose stone in the floor, covered by a rug. You have to fold the rug a certain way to see it. Under the stone, it's lined with wood. That's where the letters are." Traoré nodded. "We'll go in through the pens. Stay low. Move when I say." He opened a small pack, a folding knife, a flare, a map, and an old pistol with 2 spare magazines. Not much, but it would have to do. They exited the truck and entered the brush. Twilight fell over the village, wrapping it in long shadows. The wind carried the scent of burnt oil and ash. They moved in silence, crossing the perimeter through an unused animal trail. At one point they crawled through a dried-up irrigation trench half filled with thorns and broken tools. Traoré raised a fist. "Stop!" They had reached the rear of the house. Voices drifted through the walls. Someone shouted. Something crashed. He pointed to a laundry line overhead. Torn clothes danced in the breeze. A cracked rear window sat just above. He boosted Aminata through, then followed. Inside the house was chaos, everything overturned. But the back room, somehow, had been missed. Traoré rolled back the rug, exposing the faint outline of the stone. He pried it up. Inside a bundle of cloth. He opened it carefully. Letters, dozens of them. Handwritten pages. A worn military insignia peeked through. Armed Forces Intelligence Corps. He had what he came for. Then, voices. Closer. He grabbed the bundle and pulled Aminata into the wardrobe. Through the slats, they watched a flashlight beam sweep across the floor. 2 men entered, rifles slung. One stopped at the bed. He stared at the exposed hole. He knelt. Traoré raised the knife. Traoré gently pushed the rug aside. Beneath it, A dull metal box rested in a shallow depression in the floor. "My grandmother showed me once," Aminata whispered. "When I was very little. She said it was important, but I had to keep it secret." Traoré glanced at the box. "How big is it?" "About the size of a book," she said. "Heavy, like it's full of papers." He nodded, already formulating a plan. The back room would be the most heavily guarded, but it also backed up to the irrigation ditch. If he could approach from that angle, there might be a way in and out without being detected. "Here's what we're going to do," he said calmly. "I'll circle around to the back of the house and get inside. You stay here with the truck, keep the engine running." Aminata's brow furrowed. "Why? If something goes wrong, if you hear gunfire, or if you see me running back here, you drive straight to the border post and tell Inspector Kennedy to contact Colonel Daimiba." "Got it." Her eyes widened. "You're going to leave me here alone." Traoré knelt in front of her. "I'm going to get your grandmother, and the evidence that can put those men behind bars. But I need to know you're safe." "What if they catch you?" she asked, voice trembling. It was a possibility he hadn't wanted to face. If he was captured, neither of them would be heard from again, just like Fatima Ouedraogo, and the countless others who had gotten too close to the truth. He reached into his pocket and scribbled a number on a scrap of paper. "Then you go to the nearest town," he said, "and call this number. It's Colonel Damiba's direct line. Tell him everything we found. Everything. Promise me." Aminata took the paper with shaking hands. "I promise you, but you have to promise me something too." "What's that?" "You have to bring my grandmother back." Traoré looked into her eyes. She believed in him. Completely. It was the kind of faith that went deeper than orders, deeper than loyalty. In his years of service he had made many promises. No one had ever felt like this. "I promise." As the sun reached its zenith, Traoré began his approach. Gone was the soldier. In his place walked a local farmer, head bowed, moving through the fields like any man in search of water or work. The irrigation ditch gave perfect cover, allowing him to slip within 50 meters of the house. From here, he could hear them. Men speaking in French and Arabic, their voices tight with frustration. They had been searching for hours, growing more desperate by the minute. Then another voice, weak, defiant. "I already told you," the woman rasped. "I don't know what you're talking about. My son never told me anything about his work." A Fatima Ouedraogo, alive, but barely. From the strain in her voice, Traoré knew she wouldn't last much longer under interrogation. He moved quickly. The back window, partially open, offered just enough space. He waited for a distraction, another vehicle approaching the front of the house. As the guards shifted to meet it, Traoré slipped inside. The house was a wreck. Furniture overturned, walls stripped bare. He moved quietly through the debris into the back room. The loose stone was exactly where Aminata had said. Traoré pried it up and reached into the cavity. The metal box was cold and heavy in his hands, packed with documents, intelligence reports, personal letters, and a seal from the Armed Forces Intelligence Corps. It was enough to change everything, or get them all killed. Footsteps, coming down the hallway. No time to hide, no way to run. Traoré's grip tightened around the box. He could already picture the men who would enter, the same ones who had burned villages and silenced witnesses. And they were seconds away. Then, he made a decision. Instead of escaping, he stepped forward into the front room and faced them head on. They froze. 2 guards, guns at the ready, eyes narrowing. Traoré stood tall, the box tucked under his arm, his voice calm and clear. "Gentlemen," he said, "I believe you're looking for this." Silence fell. What happened next would be talked about for years. How a lone captain, armed only with truth and a box of documents, cracked open a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of government. But that's a story for another day. In that moment, what mattered most was this: Aminata's faith had not been in vain, and her grandmother would be coming home.